I'm Matthew Buckley Smith, and you are listening to SLEERICKETS, a podcast about poetry and other intractable problems. This is going to be a poetry episode. First, though, I just wanted to say a word about some recent news in chess. So I have been meaning for a while to return to the name Danya Naroditsky. He's come up a couple times in the podcast, but unfortunately, and this is why I was meaning to return to him, it's mostly been as a sort of an offhand reference or contrast. I used him as an example of somebody who's known for being very verbally agile for a grandmaster. Like in the chess world, he's considered very good with words, which is maybe a little bit of it's a little bit of a curve there. And then the other time I mentioned his name was in referring to sort of magnitudes of strength among really, really good chess players. So I think the comment I made was, Danya Naroditsky is a strong grandmaster, but he's nothing compared to Alireza Firouzja. Or compared with Alireza Firouzja, which is true. I mean, Alireza Firouzja is a super grandmaster and is probably not yet peaked, and is in the running, is in contention for the top spot in chess. And he was sort of Magnus Carlsen's named successor when he kind of anticipated who might be the kind of the next greatest player alive. And for those still interested, it is at the moment it's still Magnus Carlsen. He is, Gukesh Domoraju has the world championship, but the ratings, the numbers work a little bit differently. But I felt bad about this because I realized it seemed sort of dismissive of Naroditsky, who, as I said, is a strong grandmaster. He's not competing for the very, very at the very, very top level, but he's no slouch among, living active grandmasters. And he's had some really good tournaments in the last couple years, less so in very, very recent months, for reasons I won't get into in this episode. It is a little bit, it is getting ugly, unfortunately. But the reason he came back to mind most urgently, for me and for a lot of other people, is that he died very suddenly. And this is incredibly sad. He's 29 years old. There aren't that many players that strong around. So it is a real loss. He also, in addition to that, he was a very influential chess personality. It was his commentary and Robert Hess's commentary, another American grandmaster, that sort of first got me interested in chess as a spectator sport. So it's very sad. As I said, there is a little bit of complication and ugliness surrounding it, not because of him in any way, but because of another player. But I thought I would just take this opportunity to recommend to you a video that was not meant to be about him, actually. It came out about 9 months ago. It's like a 20-minute video that Gotham Chess, Levi Rosman, made. And he made it. It's dedicated to Vasyl Ivanchuk, who's a legendary Ukrainian grandmaster. He is older now. He's 55 or so, 56. So well past his prime, but still staggeringly powerful as active players go. This video is a sort of a close account of a blitz game that Ivanchuk and Naroditsky played live in a tournament, with live over the board with wooden pieces. 3 minutes per side to make all of their moves. There's a 2-second bonus per move, but that is an incredibly tight game, and they are just whipping the pieces over the board at the end. I just think that Rosman does a really good job of kind of balancing his commentary, doing a play-by-play of the game with some live footage of the finale of the game. It is, if you did not think chess could be nail-biting or incredibly emotional, it is both of those things. And as I said, the ostensible subject of the video is Ivanchuk, who is extraordinary. But Naroditsky is in a way, I think it's a great testament to his strength as a player. And I think like most chess players, regardless of what, I think he had a lot of YouTube, subscribers, but I think, any serious chess player would want to be remembered primarily for his gameplay. And it is a pretty extraordinary example of gameplay, of Naroditsky's great strength over the board. So it is, it is hard not to get choked up watching the game, and I just think it's very nicely presented by Roseman. So if you want to take a shot at finding chess exciting to spectate, then watch this video. It's called The Dark Side of Chess. It's just 20 minutes long, and rest in peace, Danya Naroditsky. There is, in the chess world, as has come up a number of times, and in a way that is very obliquely related to this case. I mean, the very short version is that Naroditsky was entirely honest and stand-up chess player. He was getting ferociously harassed by a very influential presence in the chess world, and by all evidence, falsely accused of cheating using a chess engine, an AI. This is in the world of chess. This is a very real possibility, a real accusation, right? It really means something, and it's devastating, right? Because chess engines are inarguably better at playing chess than humans are, and so it's an incredibly emotionally debilitating accusation. As I said, there's no evidence. Nobody believes that Naroditsky is cheating except for this sort of malevolent presence. This is a subject for another time. It's not Hans Niemann. It's a friend of Hans Niemann's, but it's not Hans Niemann. For once. Who also, like, as I think I like the joke I made with Brian a while back was like, either Hans Niemann's cheating or he's one of the best players alive. And like, it turns out he's one of the best players alive. Like, it turns out he almost certainly was not cheating over the board with Carlsen, and he is just one of the best chess players alive. But this, as I said, it's a longer topic for another time. But AI came up in a way I hadn't seen it come up quite exactly with regard to poetry recently. So I was talking with a friend who is so I have this friend who's very active on social media, and who mentioned this post that she found very objectionable, and it was funny because the way it came up, there were so many different mixed feelings about this post and my friend's response to it and all of it, that I just thought I would try to disentangle them here. So what I was initially told was, Katie Dozier's crazy. Katie Dozier, for those who don't know, is I think she's the associate poetry editor of Rattle. I mean, I guess they don't do anything but poetry. Associate editor of Rattle, along with Tim Green, who's the editor. They're also married. The two of them host the Poetry Space podcast, which I enjoy finding infuriating. I just finished listening today to the second half of an interview, in a sort of interview conversation they did with Gregory Orr, who was like a perfect example of like Socrates' notion of what a poet is. Socrates / Plato, in the Ion or elsewhere. Like, he read a stunning poem about snapping turtles, like a really gut-wrenching poem about snapping turtles, really well-controlled, clean, forceful. And he read like another poem or two that I thought were pretty strong. But then everything he said about poetry was like the most mushy-headed, ill-considered nonsense that had ever like crossed my eardrum. I couldn't believe how wrong he was, how bad he was at talking about poetry, despite apparently being able to write it. So as I said, I enjoy the poetry space. I find it stimulating. I often find myself arguing with it in my head, but hey, I mean, that's good. That's what you want, right? That's a sign of a healthy conversation happening. So I'm very grateful for that, for the existence of the poetry space. I want Katie Dozier to keep doing that with Tim Green, and I mean, like, I was going to try to do a little like inside baseball analysis later on, but like for anyone who's forgotten, like I also have a chapbook coming out with Rattle, like so like I can't fully disentangle myself from them, but I'll try to be as frank as I can. Despite that, and I'm hoping, like I'm tentatively, they're supposed to come on the show at some point. I've collected some questions from listeners. They've said their game. So that's supposed to happen at some point when we get our schedules to line up. But at any rate, my friend said, hey, Katie Dozier's crazy. So check out this post she made. Now, my friend didn't show me the post. She just quoted it. Didn't quote it. She paraphrased it. She said, so what Katie Dozier did was she said, Anne Carson is a bad poet. Her poems are worse than AI. And then she told an AI to write a poem in the style of Anne Carson. And then she posted that on Facebook and she said, see, this is better than this Anne Carson poem. And I'll get to the actual post in a second, but my friend's response was, she's crazy, this is bad, everybody's really mad at her and really distancing themselves from her, she's really stupid to do this, and you should be careful associating with her. And as I said, like I had so many, like such a knot of mixed feelings there. So to try to like pull them apart thread by thread, I really, really resist the notion that like because somebody said something inflammatory about poetry, I should distance myself from that person. Like my inclination when I hear that is like, fuck you, no, I'm going to associate myself more with that person now. I mean, again, not in response to all inflammatory things you might say, but something that is inflammatory when it comes to poetry, particularly if it is beating up on somebody who is extremely successful and celebrated. So like one thought I had was like, well, no matter what Katie Dozier is an influential person in the poetry world, but like not compared to Anne Carson, not compared to Anne Carson. Like Anne Carson's a lot bigger, is a much bigger deal than Katie Dozier. So like nothing Katie Dozier says is actually going to harm Anne Carson. Another thought I had was telling AI to write a poem in the style of Anne Carson sucks so much. I've been hesitating to bring this up because I truly don't have ill will and I don't want to make anybody feel bad. But like I think maybe it's worth just sort of talking through this question of like assigning an AI to write a poem in the style of a given poet. Because I've had like 2 or 3 people do this to me. Either send me something or like pull me aside in person and show me like, hey, I've had this AI do a poem in the style of Matthew Buckley Smith. Check it out. As I said, like I know ill will, and I don't want anybody to feel bad who's done this. I have nothing but love and affection for you. But it is, I think there are people who would find it funny and charming, either to say like, oh, that's kind of close to me, or like, how funny that's what it thinks I sound like. I find it really unpleasant. Like there's a famous psychological experiment you can do where you lay you like set up a mirror between the subject's left and right arm, and you set up a mannequin arm, and you do this elaborate operation in order to stroke the viewer's real arm with a feather while he is watching you stroke a mannequin's arm with a feather. And the response people have to it is so violent and alienating that they will pick up the prosthetic arm and throw it across the room. That's how I feel when somebody shows me like an AI poem written in the style of me. It feels like, it's not like, I was like, my initial instinct was to say, like, it's like saying like, hey, look, I had an AI do a deep fake of you having sex with your wife. Like, but it's not that, because like that is much worse. Like that's clearly much worse. But it is maybe like, I think maybe our intuitions kick in a little more readily if we imagine something like showing a film actor AI-generated deepfake footage of a scene acted in the style of you, right? Like, I think like our intuitions when we're faced with that are like, yeesh, that's creepy as shit. And like that is maybe inappropriately, that is my response, right? So like I had this sort of mixed instinctual reflex in hearing about the Katie Dozier thing, which is like, on the one hand, like, yeah, I don't know, like, why not take pot shots at Ann Carson, fair or otherwise? Like, it's not going to hurt her, and like a little more honesty, a little more grit in the conversation probably can't really hurt. I don't think it's stupid. Like, I don't think it's or rather, I don't think it's bad for business, which is the other phrase my friend used. I don't think it's bad for her business, because I don't think Ann Carson was sending poems to Rattle. And I think that like they've cultivated enough of their own little subculture that like I don't think that's scaring away people who would be submitting to Rattle or don't. I mean, Rattle has an endowment. Like, they're like a fucking Ivy League school. Like, they're not going anywhere. So I don't think it's bad for business. I don't think I don't think that one should shun her for doing that. I do get really creeped out by the AI thing. So then I looked up the tweet. It's not a tweet, it's a Facebook post. So a couple things. One is, here's the post. She's picking up on a theme. It's come up on the Poetry Space podcast a number of times. It's come up in other social media posts of hers that I've been directed to, because she's a shitster. She's a troll, which is partly like, I kind of want that troll to come out more when she's interviewing poets in the Poetry Space, because she was like, almost without fail, I often share her tastes, or at least like I like half 50-50 I share her tastes when she likes a poem or doesn't like a poem. But I almost perfectly disagree with every statement she makes. And like anytime she and Tim disagree, I agree with Tim. But like, again, I want that conversation to be happening. That's good. That's good for poetry, is it not? So here's the actual post. She says, imagine if we started calling out all the pseudo poems in literary journals. Pseudo poem, I don't know what that means, but like, imagine if we started like pointing to the fact that most of the poems in literary journals are very bad. Now, I don't know that people are not doing this. I think a lot of people are pointing that out. I'm pointing it out. Plenty of people I know are pointing it out. I'll continue with her post. She says, it could make journals that solicit, almost all of the big ones, think twice before publishing anything they're sent by famous poets. I've talked about solicitation. You can complain about people who solicit when you are Rattle and you get all the submissions in the world. When you don't get all the submissions in the world, sometimes you have to solicit. So on that point, shut the fuck up, Katie Dozier. But that's fine. That's fine. It could make journals that solicit, almost all of the big ones, think twice before publishing anything they're sent by famous poets. There I do, like, I think she has a point. This I've also mentioned on a recent episode, that it is not really that worthwhile to solicit from already famous poets, because unless you're the New Yorker, they're probably not going to send you what they think is their best. They're going to send you what they think is their C-tier work. And like, that's not, I don't know how much that helps you just by having their name in your table of contents. She says, sometimes the good poems in contemporary literary magazines are as rare as the trousers. That's a bad joke that is relevant to what follows. Update, many thanks to, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So she's getting so many responses. She got a shit ton of responses to this, which I did not bother to read because they're really long. Although there is a very inarticulate counterpoint. Thank God. Like a really bad case somebody made arguing with her, which, like, all right, fine. So she shared the text of this poem that Ann Carson published in a recent issue of Daedalus magazine. The poem is, I think it's fair to say, shockingly bad. Like, I don't really know Ann Carson. I had a friend recently kind of make a point about like this book and this book are really great. This book and this book are not so great. I've heard lots and lots of smart people say lots and lots of complimentary things about her. I just have not really read her yet, so I can't say much. But I believe there's a lot of value in her work. I mean, there's too many people I trust have said too much about her for me to dismiss it out of hand. I will go and spend some time with it, but this poem is shockingly bad and like almost sneeringly bad. So the title of the poem is How Pants. That's HOW space PANTS. How Pants. That's the title. And then the poem is as follows. It is several dozen lines, or several dozen repetitions, I should say, of the same line. It's also, I don't know if this is I'm assuming this is a Daedalus magazine thing and not an Anne Carson thing, but it's all printed in like a very unpleasant sort of like waxing and waning teal shade that gets lighter and darker as it goes, and again in kind of a sine curve. It's a very weird, and it's in boldface. It's just a very weird looking choice, but I don't know if that's a Daedalus thing or an Anne Carson thing, so I'll just talk about the text. The text is, all kinds of pants went by, all kinds of pants went by, all kinds of pants went by, all kinds of pants went by. And as it goes on and on and on and on and on, repeating that same line, and then, you know, a little over halfway through or 2/3 of the way through, it says, all kinds of pants went by, trousers too. And then it goes back to all kinds of pants went by for another couple dozen repetitions. And then the last line is, yet the birches linger. So all kinds of pants went by times, 30, 35. And then all kinds of pants went by, trousers too. And then all kinds of pants went by times 15, 20. And then yet the birches linger. That's the poem. That is outrageous. Like, that is a terrible poem. And it is really obnoxious for that to be published. I mean, I don't know Daedalus magazine, but like that sucks so much. Like it feels like a half-hearted flarf poem, or like, I mean, it feels like maybe like an undergraduate's idea of a sort of like a provocative concrete poem. I'm stunned by how bad this poem is. So for Katie Dozier to call it out and make fun of it feels like totally fair play, right? And like, that's what you want. If you're gonna beat up on a poet in public, it should be a very famous, celebrated poet, right? If she were trashing some undergrad or some unknown poet in this way, I would say like, this is, this kind of sucks. But like, this is totally fair. What's wrong with this? Now, the AI thing, which followed this, it came up, she, like an hour later, she posted a side-by-side. First, the pants poem, Anne Carson's poem. The header of this post is, if we don't call out the bad published poems, we're aiding the devolution of poetry. All right, settle down. I don't know about aiding the devolution of poetry. All right, like, this, like, there's a tick, I feel like, I mean, it's definitely not partisan, because I hear it from both liberals and conservatives, but the like, silence is violence. You're contributing by not actively calling out this or that. You're contributing to the downfall of our civilization. I just feel like this is a very bad rhetorical trope. I really am not fond of it. But she said, if we don't call out the bad published poems, we're aiding the devolution of poetry. And then she says, who wrote it better? And she posts the Anne Carson poem. And then she posts all this in ChatGPT 5. She has a window, copy pasted in, so you can read it. And in a ChatGPT 5 window, she posts in the Anne Carson poem, and then the prompt she writes to the machine is, write a better poem than this. So, in fairness to her, she did not say, write a poem in the style of Anne Carson. It's not so far from saying that, given how ChatGPT works. But it is, that is, I think, meaningfully different than saying, write a poem in the style of Anne Carson that's better than her. I mean, that maybe that's a distinction without a difference, but it feels different to me. I still dislike it. I still, all of this whole exercise gives me the creeps. I don't, generally speaking, I try not to ask people to hear words composed by machines, because it just, again, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. But in reading this, I felt a little cold shudder in a way I had not felt before. So I thought I would just read this just to kind of clarify what this feeling was. And maybe you can say I'm silly to have had this feeling at all. But the machine's response was, here's a playful, poetic response that keeps the humor and rhythm of Anne Carson's How Pants, but builds toward more meaning, variety, and movement. Again, you sort of do know that if you put that in, even if you just say write a better poem than this, it's going to be using the text as the prompt. So it is, in some sense, going to be writing a poem as it understands to be in the style of Anne Carson. So here's the computer's poem. It's called When Pants Dream, by not Anne Carson, but close enough. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe it is a distinction without a difference. She didn't ask it to, but it's still doing it nonetheless, and it is pretty fucking gross. Here's the machine's poem. All kinds of pants went by. Corduroy whispering secrets to jeans. Yoga pants stretching the truth. Cargo pants full of good intentions. Some pants hurried, pressed for time. Some lounged, creasing themselves with ease. Shorts tried to sneak in, denied. A kilt giggled. Sweatpants sighed. Even the invisible ones, the emperors, made an appearance. So I'm not going to try to give an analysis of the poem as a whole. It is a lot more fluent than some of the other poems I've read by these machines, and it's cute, but it does have some tidiness and some cleverness to it. The thing that gave me a little chill when I read it was just the very, very beginning. All kinds of pants went by, corduroy whispering secrets to jeans. Now, what becomes very clear, Katie and her friends all seem to love the line, yoga pants stretching the truth. That was the line where, as soon as I read that, I had a sigh of relief. Because it's such an obvious, dumb joke, right? It's such an obvious thing to reach for, yoga pants stretching the truth. Phew, okay. It's reaching for a received set of associations, right? Because it's making little punny jokes about each of the types of pants. Like cargo pants are full of good intentions. The pants were pressed for time. The shorts tried to sneak in, denied. A kilt giggled. Sweatpants sighed. Even the invisible ones, the emperors, made an appearance. It's making little jokey references and puns about various types of pants. The thing that gave me a little shudder was the thing I had not seen a computer do yet. That it was the thing I talked to Carmine Starnino about, which is providing a likeness or an observation that rings true. Like describing something in a way that feels like, ooh, that's apt. Not just neat combination of words or well rhymed or, ooh, that's a novel construction, but like, oh, there's some truth to, like, I recognize that thing you've just named. And that's the feeling I had when I saw it associate corduroy with whispering. Corduroy whispering secrets to jeans. Because I thought, well, that is the sound corduroys make when you walk in them, that your thighs brush together, that whisper sound. And like that it would identify that's what gave me the chill. Because if it can make that kind of connection, then we are really dealing with a different beast, because it is suddenly not just about a very refined set of probabilities as to which word comes next. It does seem to have something to do with making original observations. Now, because of all the dumb, jokey puns that followed, my hope was then like, oh, I guess that's a thing people have said in the past. Like, I know people have made the point about corduroys making sounds when they brush together. I don't know if I had ever run into the use of the word whispering to refer to that sound. But based on the rest of the poem, I'm assuming people have done that enough that that's what it was picking up on. That it doesn't associate the sound corduroys make with the sound of whispering. It associates the word corduroys with the word whispering. Right. So that's my hope. That's my hope. But yeah, like, what was my verdict on all of this? Like, totally fair play from Katie Dozier. Also, using AI to do this sucks pretty bad. And if people got mad about it, then they should feel free to yell at her. That seems fine. But like disassociating from her, like I really dislike that impulse. Really dislike the impulse to say like, this person has caused a ripple of distress and consensus breaking. Therefore, let's expunge this person. Let's surround this person with white blood cells and squeeze them out on a raft of pus, right? Like that impulse I really, really dislike. So no pus for you, Kitty Dozier. I disagree with you all the time, and I think you are a huge troll, but I also think you're right about some things, and I'm glad you're out there trolling. Troll more on the podcast. Troll Gregory Orr. Such a good poem. Such dumb things he had to say about poetry. I was going to try to, I had like I saw an old lady who swallowed a fly chain of associations I was going to try to work through. Yeah, how can I work through this? Okay. So I had because like I've had some listeners say, I mentioned this. I can't remember what all is on The Secret Show, what's not. There's some really good stuff on The Secret Show. For those of you who don't yet listen, we've had a lot of people signing up recently. Welcome. This isn't a Secret Show episode, but welcome to all of you. And it's worth checking out. Go to SLEERICKETS.substack.com, put your email address in, and I'll give you a week's access for free. And after that, it's really cheap and really good, I think. Like there's a lot of really fun, juicy stuff on there that is not on the main feed. So I can't remember if it was on there or not, but I talked with Brian about, there have been some listeners who've said, hey, I don't consider myself to be a successful poet, but some listeners have said, I think, whatever degree of success you've achieved, I appreciate your being transparent about how that works, what that actually looks like and what's going on. And so I thought I would do a little bit of that because I've been sort of in a like jumbly, juggling, scrambling phase trying to stack up and line up and complete a bunch of different tasks. I'm rewatching Justin Kurzel's Macbeth with Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard, and such an amazing cast. David Thewlis, Jack Raynor, Paddy Considine. Paddy Considine, like barely in it, but amazing. Who is that fucking weird guy? He's a really weird looking guy, but he's a great character actor. Sean Harris, very weird dude, but like really, really good actor. And Elizabeth Debicki. Right, very small role, but good, and like an amazing supporting cast. Just like I've recommended it a couple times, but like it is so fucking good. It is really good. And a thing that occurred to me just tonight is that like I love a good, dignified RP delivery of a classic Shakespeare monologue, but like Shakespeare sounds so fucking good in a thick Scottish brogue. It sounds amazing. Like the language might sound better in a Scottish brogue than it does in a Southern English posh accent. Like I'm sorry, I think it really might. But yeah, it's as atmosphere, storytelling. I'm writing a paper for the ALCW about just the use of children in it, which is diabolical. But just holy shit, it's really, really good. But I'm working on that. I just sent a thing in for another paper for Elijah, and I realized in the middle of all this that I'm going to be missing a reading I was supposed to give here because I'll be in Columbus. So I did the thing. Here's the thing. This is how this happens. For those who aren't privy, like how do these readings get set up? How did I get asked to do that reading in the first place? Somebody who knows me knew the guy who ran it and recommended me. Like, I don't know exactly what order. I don't know exactly how. But, like, definitely that's what happened. I mean, I already knew the guy a little bit. But, like, somebody happened to think of me, and that's why. So then I had to write him and say, I can't do this reading. Let me help you fill the spot. And then I recommended some people I knew. And, like, do I think they're good? Yeah. One I think is great. Another one I had to tentatively recommend just because of schedule stuff is also great. And the other two I think I don't really know, but I like them. And he needs some people. And that's not ideal, right? Ideally, the only people who would ever be recommended for anything would be it'd be all based on merit. But it's not. I try to, again, like I try to make compromises when and where I can. But like I recommend friends for things all the time because they're my friends. And like some of my friends, I have a great admiration for their work. Some of my friends, I have moderate admiration for their work. Some friends, I love their critical work, but not their poetry or vice versa. It all varies. And I do my best to help them out, to do solids for them. That's why I'm on these panels. Like I'm not on these panels because I have brilliant things to say about Macbeth or about poetry and myth. I'm on these panels because the people who are running the panels know me. And so asked me to do that. Right? Like even so I'm giving a reading tomorrow night, which is when this comes out tonight. So I don't think any of you is going to be able to come to it. It's at High Point University. It's open to the public if you would like to come. It's at High Point University in the chapel at 7 p.m. A couple of undergrads are going to read first for 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to read and talk a little bit. I'm doing a reading. Before that, I'm doing a little not open to the public talk for an hour with some undergrads, and I'm preparing for that. So how did that happen? Right? Why am I the person coming to do that? Again, because I knew somebody. And like it's a chain of knowing people leads to knowing people leads to knowing people. So the person I know who, the reason I'm doing this, again, like, do I think this person thinks highly of me and my work? Yeah, probably, sort of, within measure, balanced by the fact that she also knows me and she happened to need somebody and she happened to think of me. Yeah, who knows? I try to do good work regardless. But again, it's because she knows me. She knows me because she and I and another person were in a writing group together. We were in a writing group together because all of us were in an anthology together. All of us were in an anthology together because the person running the anthology asked Alan Shapiro for a poem. And he said, no. But I can give you a couple other names, right? Same thing I'm doing. He said, here's a couple names of some guys. You could ask them for poems instead. And he gave them my name and Jonathan's names. And so that's why Jonathan and I are in the anthology. And that's why I got to be in the group. And that's why I got to know this person. That's why I got this invitation to read. Now, why did Alan Shapiro know who I am? Because I was introduced to him by Michael McPhee, who is a retired professor at UNC. Why did he introduce me to Alan Shapiro? Because he taught my wife when she was an undergrad, and then we moved here, and they've stayed in touch, and so he was doing me a solid, not even as somebody he really knows, just as somebody who's married to somebody he knows. So, like, again, do I think I have some good things to say tomorrow to these undergrads? Yeah, I'm working really hard on this talk. I'm worked hard on the poems I'm going to read. I'm going to try to figure out what to read. I like to read poems by some other people too to start with. So I got to figure out what I feel like the gift of this, the last issue I got to do of LM is there's so much good stuff in it that by poets that people don't necessarily know as well that I've mostly been reading selections from that. So I think I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to read a couple poems from that. So many good poems in there. And again, like one does one's best when given the opportunity to promote the work of people who are just good, whom you don't know, right? And they're people you get to know because of their work. But it's very seldom are those connections and those judgments totally pure. Oh, and then so then here's another like weird insider wrinkle. And I don't know if Shannon listens to the show or not, but if so, welcome, Shannon. And I have nothing but respect for you and what you're doing. I'm going to tell this little soon to be no longer an anecdote, just to try to like be clear about how all this stuff works, right? So I have some poems that are going to be in this little magazine soon coming up. Why do I have poems that are going to be in this magazine? Because the person who edits the magazine solicited work from me. And I made a calculation, which is I looked up this person, I looked up the magazine, and when people solicit work from me, I try to give them work when I can, when it's, within reason. Why did she solicit work from me? I don't know all of the reasons. I know the reasons she gave me. Very, very thoughtful, very sweet note, very sincere sounding. And I believe sincere, but I'm just saying, one never knows. But she said she read a review that Eliza wrote of my work. What was the totality of her response to that? Like, again, I don't think I'm particularly successful. I don't think I'm particularly important, but I also realize like there are reasons people reach out to me that don't necessarily have to do with the pure quality of my work. Now, I would love to believe it's only ever that, but I also try to be realistic, right? I take Shannon at her word and I send her work I think is good. I really don't like sending out second-rate work at all. But like, I don't know, there are a lot of reasons people do these things. There are a lot of reasons people solicit. Why did Eliza review my book? Well, I think he sincerely liked it, but also like, I know Eliza. There are all of these connections within connections within connections. It's impossible to disentangle all of it. I just thought it was funny because I feel like I'm very grateful, Shannon. I'm touched and I'm proud and honored for my poems to appear in your magazine. I also think like you may have made a terrible mistake because here's what happened. So I write and revise in kind of cycles, and I'm in this big, long, slow cycle because I've been working on prose stuff for a long time. So I've been slow to produce poems, and I'm kind of working on these two big boluses of sets of sapphics, which everything's slower, so it's taking much longer. And I'm not really going to have new poems, except for one or two odd ones here and there, until I get through all of those and then let them sit for several months and then go back and then start winnowing them. And that's when I'm going to start to have actual new poems to send out. So I don't really have new poems. I'm not really sending new poems out. What I do have is 6 leftovers. Now, I don't mean 6 unpublished poems total. I have hundreds of unpublished poems. But I mean, I have 6 poems that I think are good enough that are unpublished, that are finished and unpublished. But even though I don't think they're second rate, I also know that they're like real weird, like weird in lots of different directions. Like one is a fairly standard, like nice daughter poem. So like that seems fine and reasonable. 2 of them are like slightly too specific, slightly too esoteric poems dedicated to really not fashionable dead poets from totally different like languages and eras. One is a like really uncomfortable sex poem with like a really gross semen moment in it. Another one is like a sort of a short, slightly like more cynical than I would normally. I know more cynical than I would normally publish sounds like a contradiction in terms to some of you, but like slightly more cynical. Like it feels a little bit like a younger sex love poem. And one of them is the assassination poem that I read on The Secret Show and said, this doesn't seem like I could publish this anywhere. I did get a very good recommendation from Jonathan and I changed the title. And I think that helps. But like, I sent these to her with the huge caveat that like, I definitely understand if none of these are for you. And like, I think they're good, but I also think they're real weird and like, definitely not all for the same person. Definitely not like my assumption is she might take the daughter one and then be like, yeah, the rest are fine. Thank you. But no, thank you. She took all of them. She took all of them, which seems based on like, she has a very respectable sort of dignified, like slightly more serious poetry magazine than one that should publish me in it. And like, definitely than one that should publish all of these poems in it. Like this seems like a disaster. Like, her readers are going to fucking hate these poems. So this is why I said, Shannon, I am thankful. I am touched. And I'm totally sincere in writing these poems, sending them to you. None of that is bad faith. I just think you've made a huge mistake by taking all of them, but good luck. All right, so maybe here's what I'll do. I thought I would try to talk through what I am going to say to these undergrads tomorrow / if you're listening to this now, tonight, before the reading. In it's a little sort of like class workshop thing. I put together a little packet of 8 pages of poems that they're going to have on hand so I can refer to. I'm hoping there's some sort of board I can scribble on. Most of these poems are poems I have talked about on the show, but I was thinking about sort of how I want to address, like, what does one say to a bunch of undergrads that's not a waste of time? First thought that came to mind was like, what did I want at that age? Well, I wanted to get published, right? I should not have been getting published and was not at that stage, but like, that's what I wanted. And so if somebody was going to come in and teach me something about poetry, that probably was like my first most mercenary question, if you really asked me. And so, like, I guess I don't know exactly how frank I'm going to be with them, but like, I basically have 2 answers to that. One is, well, I have 3 answers. One is, I'm the wrong person to ask. Like, you don't actually want my advice on how to get published. You want the advice of somebody I consider successful. But like, then my second answer is, even if I were the right person to ask, whatever works for me is not going to work for you in exactly the same way. Because what worked for people 20 years older than me, 25 years older than me, didn't work for me. Right? The landscape's changing. So I don't anticipate that things will remain just the same as they have been. I assume it will continue to shift. It may be that really the best way to publish poems is simply to post them to your social media feed, period, in the future. Like, that may well be truly the best thing to do. Right? I mean, definitely there was a stage early on in my career when it was it was really not desirable to publish online. You really wanted to publish in print. And like, now, I mean, I do publish in print some, and I love books. I prefer to read in print, but like, it seems crazy to publish individual lyric poems not online. Like, you want them to be online. You want them to be shareable. You want them to be accessible, look-upable, linkable. So like, I just assume that the rules will be different enough that my advice is meaningless, right? As most advice tends to be. And then my third answer is, it's your friends. Like, make friends with people. Know people who know people, get to know people, be not a huge asshole. Like I know like a fair number of people, and I would definitely know a lot more if I were less of an asshole. But like, I'm keeping it in as, reined in as much as I can. But then I thought, like, well, what would actually be useful to them with regard to their poems? And, like, I have something of a like very basic introductory spiel about sort of the operation of the lyric. But then I was looking at the, so they were assigned to read Richard Sicken's book, Crush. His first book, it won the Yale Younger Poets Prize, selected by Louise Gluck. It has an introduction by Dana Levin. They did like, Yale did a really nice 20th anniversary edition. It's really, really handsome. Really beautiful little book. Introduction by Dana Levin, foreword by Louise Gluck. I read both of those, and I just barely started reading the poems, although there are a lot of poems quoted in the intro and the foreword. My previous experience with Richard Sicken was this. He read at my graduate school from it may have been his second book, the book that came out after this, I think. It was like a big, big, hefty book. It was like a novel-sized book. Too long. Poetry books should not be that long. And he was not a good reader. My recollection was that he was a very supercilious reader, and he read in a way that made his poems hard to follow, and he seemed very pleased with himself, and everybody was fawning over him, and I zoned out. And I mean, like, we read some of his poems in class, and I kind of zoned out of those two. Granted, I'm a bad listener. I'm a bad reader. I was probably being dumb and stupid in 24. But he slid right off the surface of my brain. Smooth brain as I was. Reading their introductory words about him, it called attention to something sort of interesting. I've talked some about like the quality of stinkiness in poetry, right? Like the dense, pungent, rich texture of language that seems to appeal so much to certain readers. I talked with Cameron over the phone about this the other day. It's not the sort of stuff I find most pleasing, but there is a certain kind of poetry that just feels like it's a hunk of really sharp cheese. And it's just really impressive that this like texture and density and matter has been produced, and the shape of it is a little bit beside the point. My experience is it tends to feel sort of airless, but I think a lot of people find it like rich and rewarding and pleasing. It did not seem like that was exactly what they were responding to, but it did. Like I noticed that both Levin and Glick, when they quoted from Sicken's poems and when they talked about the effect of his poems, it was the same tendency that I recognized from William Logan in his reviews, which is to quote individual lines or chunks of lines and basically to say, get a load of this. Now that's poetry. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to do, because I do think that like his language is taut and ripe and fresh in a way that most is not. And that is apparent when you read it. But again, what I always marvel at when I read this kind of criticism, this kind of commentary on poetry, is that it doesn't seem to have any regard for the shape of the poem as a whole. Right? It's like looking at a slingshot and doing nothing but praising the texture of the wood, without ever bothering to look at the fact that it fucking fires a rock 500 yards. So I don't think what they were appreciating in Sicken's poetry was sort of pure like stinky cheese richness or ripeness. I think there is, he seems like a little bit of a one-liner poet. And I once accused Australian poets of being one-liner poets, and Alice objected, and I think she objected rightly. I do think I have a slightly better idea maybe of how I got that impression. It does seem to me to be the case that there is a tendency among Australian poets to use a lot of shorthand. Not Jonathan Harker style shorthand, but fragments, one word or one phrase, references to familiar things. And it does seem to be a way of, it's a little bit of like an inside joke effect where it lets you know you're on the inside if you do get it, and it lets you, and it shrugs its shoulders at you if you don't get it. But it is a way of not showing an emotional commitment. And that I think can be very effective, because it can set us off our guard for when the emotional force arrives. So one of the poems in this little packet of 8 that I included for Charmaine's students was Alice's poem To My Artist Friends. And like that's a poem that is, I think, fairly approachable to an American readership. But even there's so much sort of like dense shorthand reference to things, to a sort of an always already thrownness into the mode of speech and thought of the poem. It begins. It's called To My Artist Friends, and then it has a little italicized line that before the poem that says "A hen's party well past bedtime," and then the first line is "The tyranny of distance, as they say." So even there, like, you have to do a lot of triangulation just to keep your bearings in the poem. Who are we talking? Who is this poem addressed to? To my artist friends. That's presumably what it's about. But the setting is a hen's party, and then well past bedtime. Even that, there's a little bit of cheekiness there, right? Like using bedtime in a way that is typically a term reserved for children, but suggestion that there's something sort of self-consciously naughty about this event, and like an event that doesn't seem to have anything to do with art or artists, on the face of it at least. And then the first line is the tyranny of distance, as they say, period. So it's not even a sentence. It's referring to something that is meant already to be familiar as a shorthand for a larger statement, and then just acknowledging that that even using that as a reference is itself a cliche, right? It's already sort of apologizing and dismissing itself. And I think like it would be very easy to just be lost there. But if you stick with it, I think it's a very effective argument. And that's what I think I realized I wanted to talk to the kids about, is argument. The tyranny of distance is a received phrase that is used in Australia by Australians about Australia. Distance has a kind of a tyranny in many different contexts, but like especially in the case of Australia, it's so fucking far away from the rest of the English-speaking world. It's so far away. It's its own continent. It's on the other side of the world. That really does have a strong effect on its culture, on its way of seeing itself, on its history, on a lot of things. That's what's being evoked in reference to the artist friends at the hens party. And all of this is done in a sort of a shrugging, self-mocking, guardedly, slightly ironic, self-conscious way. The next line is, tonight we vandalize the edifice of sacred unions. The register's so high that it's clear that she's making fun of this thing that they're doing, which they actually are doing. They're mocking the institution of marriage, but they're aware that they're mocking it, and they're making fun of somebody who would mock it. And then the register drops all the way down. Sarah needs to piss. Amanda's drunk. Jen's been drunk all day. I slip outside to find the Milky Way. Get hit with Lena's coked analysis of babies, blowjobs, pegging, wedded bliss. This is hens party talk. But it's not what the speaker is seeking. She's seeking something else. She's seeking a kind of escape from this context. I'm no one's mum. Right? There's all this baby talk, marriage talk. I'm no one's mum. I itch in lingerie. Right? This context is alien to her. She can play the role, she can hang out, but this is not a native condition for her. We're starting like these little fragments, the refusal to explain, right, at the beginning is starting to come together a little bit more. Where you guys are, it's daylight, just past 2. Well, there's only been one other you thus far, and that's the implied you in To My Artist Friends. That's who's being addressed in line 9. The Volta. Where you guys are, it's daylight, just past 2. There's the artist friends and the tyranny of distance. Right? This slightly shambolic, self-mocking hens party scene has been reoriented to the artist friends on the other side of the world. We see how these 3 disparate pieces come together. Where you guys are, it's daylight, just past 2. Nobody here would waste her drinking time and sell out half her mates to get a line. Nobody here would waste her drinking time. Here, in hens party land, in Australia, there's better stuff going on. And also maybe morally better stuff going on. Like, not only is this ridiculous, shambolic, self-mocking, hedonistic party of more obvious worth than a bunch of dumb poetry, but like it may be actually sort of more morally, humanly decent because it doesn't involve the kind of betrayal that is involved in writing a poem like this one. So there's sort of all claims are guarded by self-mockery and apology and irony. Scribbles, silence, this is what I do. Well, somebody would, right? This is like the opposite of something there is that doesn't love a wall. Nobody here, but she would, which maybe, as with Shakespeare's claim about if this be error and upon me proved, maybe that means she's not really there. Nobody here would waste her drinking time and sell out half her mates to get a line, but that's what she's doing. And so maybe she's not really there. Maybe she's on the other end of the world. My girls, good girls, fulfilled in their existence. I'm wasted, but I can't forget the distance. They're living the life they're supposed to be living, these girls at the hen party. They're in good faith with themselves at the party, and they're in good faith with themselves in their lives. Even this decadence, even this excess of the party fits into the plan of the good, normal, healthy life they're living. And the narrator is doing her best to wholesomely participate by getting wasted, but still can't quite be there. I'm wasted, but I can't forget the distance. Now, I do think that line by line, chunk by chunk of stinky cheese, the language is fairly fresh and tart. It's not maybe, the densest, the most pungent, because I think the real power of the poem comes in the sequence, in the argument, in the accumulation of meaning. My girls, good girls, fulfilled in their existence. I'm wasted, but I can't forget the distance. That couplet would be a terrible way to start a poem, right? Because even if stinky cheese can come in any order, a slingshot can't, right? A cricket bat can't, as Tom Stoppard has argued in The Real Thing. I'll just read this one more time. This is To My Artist Friends. This was commissioned by Elijah for an episode of Versecraft, which I'll link to. But I thought I would show it to my undergrad girls tomorrow night. To My Artist Friends by Alice Allen, a hen's party well past bedtime. The tyranny of distance, as they say. Tonight we vandalize the edifice of sacred unions. Sarah needs to piss. Amanda's drunk. Jen's been drunk all day. I slip outside to find the Milky Way, get hit with Lena's coked analysis of babies, blowjobs, pegging, wedded bliss. I'm no one's mum. I itch in lingerie. Where you guys are, it's daylight, just past 2. Nobody here would waste her drinking time and sell out half her mates to get a line. Scribbles, silence. This is what I do. My girls, good girls, fulfilled in their existence. I'm wasted, but I can't forget the distance. So that's the first poem in the packet. After that, I have Chelsea Rathburn's sonnet After Filing for Divorce. After that, I have Tired by Fenton Johnson. It's come up, numerous times in the show. After that, I have Fragment 16 by Sappho, translated by Sherrod Santos. Sorry to all the classics translators. I still fucking love this translation. After that, I have Sonnet 73 by William Shakespeare. After that, Holy Sonnet 14 by John Donne. After that, Nothing Endures by County Cullen. After that, My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. Not my favorite Browning poem, but holy shit, I transcribed it today. It's so fucking good. It's unbelievably good. It's so deft. I don't think of him as, I don't think of his chief virtue as being that of acrobatic agility, but it is so formally skilled. It's incredible how good it is. And then the last poem in the packet is a poem I don't think I've talked about on the podcast, but I really love it. It's called A Sunset of the City by Gwendolyn Brooks, and it has another one of these sort of italicized subheads, Kathleen Eileen, which I guess is a double first name. Terrible pairing of first names, right? You don't want that kind of rhyme in a double name. And I love this poem. I don't know that I have time to read it here. Maybe I'll read it on The Secret Show. I don't know. But I was following a hunch because it's very, very good. It's a lament by a housewife in, late middle age, and I thought it is so similar in tone, in subject matter, even in the sort of feel and texture of a lot of it. It's so similar to one of my very, very favorite poems by anyone, Next Day by Randall Jarrell. I thought, there's a zeitgeist. I'm sure there were a lot of people writing poems, like bad versions of poems like this around the same time, but I thought, like, it feels so similar to that. Could there be a link between them? I don't know. But it turns out this poem was published in 1963, and Next Day was published in 1965. So I don't know. But I kind of like the idea that Jarrell might have been inspired by it. Because they're both so good. But yeah, I don't have time for all of that. But yeah, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit on the Secret Show. I think I mentioned Next Day before, which is just wonderful. But yeah, I'm working on a kind of an idea of like how arguments operate, because I do think they're sort of, it's not one thing, and I don't know if I have a good unified theory of it. I read this essay Elijah he sort of referred to it derisively in a text chain. And I think like maybe correctly derisively, because I think it's got a lot of wrongness in it, and it's not like I don't follow or agree with much of it. But it's an essay by Edgar Allan Poe called The Poetic Principle, and it has, I think, at least sort of some worthwhile ideas in it, including one where he tries to articulate what the actual feeling is that a poem tries to evoke. Because what I have said in the past is that the proper function of a lyric is to cause in the reader an emotion experienced in the writer. And I do think that's right, but I also think like maybe it's not exactly right. He quotes Longfellow from his poem The Day Is Done, which is like, it's like a poem with some wonderful, wonderful stanzas and like also some real dumbness in it. But like some of it's really beautiful. Such songs have power to quiet the restless pulse of care and come like the benediction that follows after prayer. And then this is the last stanza. And the night shall be filled with music, and the cares that infest the day shall fold their tents like the Arabs and as silently steal away. And Poe quotes this poem from an earlier stanza in the poem to say that he thinks basically he says, in talking about the tone of sadness, the feeling that a good lyric poem evokes, he says, let me remind you that how or why we know not, this certain tint of sadness is inseparably connected with all the higher manifestations of true beauty. It is, nevertheless, and then he quotes Longfellow, a feeling of sadness and longing that is not akin to pain and resembles sorrow only as the mist resembles the rain. That feels to me like not maybe quite right. It doesn't feel like the thing that you get in a poem is just a watered down version of the emotion. Like that if the emotion were strong enough in the poem, it would make it bad and unpleasant. Like clearly when you read a poem, you're not going to have as strong an emotional reaction as you have probably when something, really intense happens to you in life. But like, it doesn't seem like the operation of it depends upon its being weak or watered down or diffuse. I have maybe kind of a theory, but maybe I'll try to get into that in Secret Show some. I'm working on it, because like the other thing that I in reading through these poems, and I think My Last Duchess is a really strong example of this, is that there are two arguments. Like even if we take I've talked about the magic quotation marks and reading every poem as a dramatic monologue, but like there's the speaker's argument, and there's the poem's argument. And I think like it's not that there's a constant relationship between these two. They can be identical, or they can be opposed. Like the argument, the speaker's argument and the poem's argument in My Last Duchess are almost perfectly opposed to each other. There's miles between them. In Alice's poem, they're pretty darn close to identical. So I don't know. I don't have a good unified field theory of this yet, but I'm just trying to actually put some pressure on okay, but what is happening? What is, when I say argument as a kind of a term for the motion of a poem, but what is that actually? So that's what I'm going to try to talk through a little bit with the. I call them girls because they're all female undergrads. I don't think it's a girls' school. I just think they happen to be all female. Yeah, we'll see. Could be a disaster. Could be a total error. But hey, I got it because of nepotism, as everybody gets everything. So we shall find out. Yeah, all right. I'll break it off there. Maybe in the secret show, I'll dig into the weeds a little more or something. We'll see. Maybe I'll give you a postmortem of the disastrous talk and reading that I will have given by the time the secret show episode comes out. Thank you all for listening. Go pre-order Brian's book, The Optimists. Link in the show notes. I will leave the link in the show notes. Go pre-order it. Go. And go to the secret show. SLEERICKETS.substack.com. You know the rest. If you have some expendable income, consider becoming a motherfucker of the arts, and you can give a little more. You can decide how much to give, and it will help. It'll make a big difference in making the show possible for all of us who produce it. And if you would like to listen but you have trouble paying for it, just send me a note. It's sleerickets@gmail.com, and I will take care of you. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Rest in peace, Danya Naroditsky. And with any luck, I will be speaking to you again very soon. Until then.